Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another episode review from Season 5 of The Loud House. Today's episode is titled, Diamonds Are For Never. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. The episode begins with Lincoln performing some magic for his family, but Lola gets distracted by Mr. Grouse finding a gold ring in the backyard with his metal detector. He plans to go to a precious stones and metal show to make money off what he finds, but he won't allow Lola to join him. Instead, Lola has Lisa trick out her princess card to find and collect metals as well, leading her and Mr. Grouse to fight over certain areas to search. They decide to split up and each search half of Royal Woods, leading both of them to the same area on the beach where they find a large diamond. They take turns over who gets to watch it, but they clearly don't trust each other to watch the diamond alone. They decide to lock the gem in a glass case, and both watch over it for the night. In the morning, they see the diamond is no longer in the case, and they begin tearing each other's houses apart trying to find it. Eventually, Lincoln reveals the case they placed the diamond in was one of his magic props, and it fell through the cushion and onto the false bottom inside. Lola and Mr. Grouse apologize for their accusations, and make their way to the Stones and Metal show to collect their money. However, Mr. Loud takes his half of the money to repair the damage Grouse caused to his house, and Lola gives away her half to pay for the repairs she caused on the house next door. The two decide to spend some of the leftover earnings on ice cream, and ultimately admit they make a good team. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. Going based on the title alone, this episode played to Lola's character exactly the way I knew it would. Considering her ace-savvy persona is called the Queen of Diamonds, and how much she loves jewelry and money, it would have been a slap in the face if this episode didn't feature Lola. I mean, just the way her eyes lit up when she thought about how much money she could make from the Stones and Metal show is all the proof you need to know that this had to center around her. Ordinarily, I was against the idea of her sharing the lead with Mr. Grouse. I always thought it could have been her and Flip, since they both have a greedy side and love the idea of making a fortune, although I do have some issues with him in this episode. More so on the writers than him, but that's for later. Even Lynn could have worked opposite her little sister based on their fight over money in The Boss maybe, and I will have more to say on her in just a little while. But either way, if it's anything like the episode Good Sports, where Lynn and Mr. Grouse were sharing the lead, this episode gives a little more depth into who he is besides the obvious cranky old man who lives next door character. One of the biggest plot holes in this episode is how Mr. Grouse and Lola are basically using standard metal detectors, and not to be technical about it, but a metal detector cannot find a non-metal such as a diamond. However, there are two possible loopholes to get around this. First, Mr. Grouse does refer to his device as a treasure detector, diamonds being a treasure of course, and since Lisa is a certified genius, and excellent clone master too by the way, she could have very easily made a device that could locate both metals and non-metals. And second, their respective metal devices could have been detecting something far below the sand like a gold ring where a large detached diamond was located. No matter the loophole, it explains why Lola was able to find marbles in her bag of metals, and Mr. Grouse finding a glass vase and a freaking unicorn skull alongside a metal anchor. Why such a big diamond on quite possibly a small ring? Because cartoon comedic effect, that's why. Of course, I did find a few problems with this episode, so now we come to my critiques. The biggest gripe I had was Lynn trying to make her brother feel bad about his disappearing bird trick by pointing out the fact his hat had a false bottom where Walt was hiding. On the one hand, she's not wrong, and maybe Lincoln shouldn't have tried so hard to act like everything he was doing was legit. You can sort of see on his face he wasn't prepared for pushback. But then his sister wrestled him again later on when he was using the same hat for a disappearing sock trick. If this was one of his classmates like Chandler doing this, I would have been more inclined to believe that. Lynn was being all supportive during the first few seconds, and then she just became a heckler out of nowhere. It was in rather poor taste, and I can see why Lynn gets a certain amount of hate from the fans. The only thing that kinda makes these magic is fake and here's the proof moments come off as useful is when Lincoln points out how the glass case Lola used for the diamond was designed with a false bottom like his hat. That's pretty much magic in a nutshell, in which things aren't necessarily what they appear to be. It was a clever way of getting Lola Lola and Mr. Grouse to realize they were fighting over something that wasn't missing in the first place. But as far as the glass case goes, I had to wonder how Lola didn't figure out the case she used was just a magic prop, or how she and her neighbor didn't just smash the case after seeing it wasn't in there, possibly hidden beneath the cushion. I guess when you consider how large that diamond was, you can't really blame either of them for not thinking how you could find another place to hide a huge gem inside a small see-through box. Perhaps Lola was in such a rush to protect the gem that she didn't even know the case she grabbed was not genuine. Judging by how expensive that diamond appeared, having these two neighbors go crazy with suspicion and greed to the point where they destroyed each other's property was to be expected. Again, playing to Lola's character. She assumed the old man took the gem since he was the only one who had the key, probably dropped it off in the toilet at some point after swallowing it while she was asleep. And Grouse could have assumed Lola picked the lock with a hairpin or something while he was asleep. At least these two got their comeuppance after they had to surrender their half of the money. Their obsession with getting rich cost them big time, and yet they handled their loss graciously, and I very much appreciate that. But there is one thing left to talk about, and it's something I don't appreciate. That would be the handling of Flip. What happened to this guy having two butts like he proudly displayed in Blinded by Science? Science! In this episode, he's seen only having one like we've seen in episodes like Come Sail Away and Out on a Limo. So, did Blinded by Science just never happen? You know, it's funny how the production team can be consistent with Lincoln taking up magic in this episode like he did in Saved by the Spell, and yet they can't keep any consistency with Flip's freakish body they just threw together in the same season. I can't blame the character for this one. This one falls solely on the writers. Meh, nothing ever makes sense with Flip anyway, so why start now? Overall, this episode is not all too bad when it comes to a storyline that really played well to the kind of character Lola is, and it gave Mr. Grouse a little bit more development into the kind of character he is, although not by much. The lesson these two learned was how money is the root of all evil, and their greed in wanting to make a profit off the diamond led them to going completely insane with mistrust, destruction, and inevitably not having anything to show for it. They technically did have their cake and eat it too. Well, actually it was ice cream, but their actions were their own undoing, and it was very mature of Lola to give up her half of the money she made. You can't go wrong with a character handling their screw-ups like an adult. Now, regardless of my thoughts on how Lynn acted towards her brother, I did very much appreciate the somewhat foreshadowing Lincoln was setting up for later on when it came to the idea of a false bottom of his props, making anyone think something was gone when in fact it was not. And I might as well just say that as far as I'm concerned, Flip is the most inconsistent character of the entire series, and it only took half of season 5, especially this episode, to make that painfully obvious. With that said, I give Diamonds Are For Never an 8.2 out of 10. Well, folks, that concludes my review of Diamonds Are For Never. As of this episode, we have officially reached the halfway point of Season 5, and I'll admit it's been quite a ride so far, and we're not done yet. I already have my list of top 10 episodes of the season, but will the second half of the season knock some episodes off the list? We shall see. So, as far as this mid-season finale goes, what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.